I have to click on, is this video made for kids or not made for kids? When the reality is, kids should be seeing these videos. The next generation needs to know what's happening. And if there's a kid that's truly out there trying to, learn about the way this shit works, having another perspective is a good idea. It's weird that's a thing. I was reading Alex Jones today, and it's just like boring, silly shit at this point. There was more than one person. Really, I'm lying. I'm lying. I know there was more than one person. I know it was showing me one person, and then it jumped up to 4. But the idea of having 51 people 20 minutes beforehand and being whittled down to 4 just don't make no sense. So it's generally what happens. Like, I know my feed. I know you watch my feed every day. So that makes you think you know it pretty well. But trust me, I know it a little bit better than you do. And the reality is, I was talking about Alex Jones, and I shouldn't have been. There isn't another more important story than this Epstein story, because it involves the biggest pieces in the puzzle. Yes, Alex Jones is connected to it, but he's just a fucking small little tentacle. He's controlled opposition, and I think it's safe to say he's the number one controlled opposition out there. My feed is choppy. I live in Metro Detroit area. I'm surrounded by cell phone towers. It's flat everywhere I am. Why would my feed be? I'm on T-Mobile network. Why would my feed be choppy other than censorship? It's all censorship. And then, like you have to be stupid to not get that. You have to be willfully stupid to think that way, to think that they give us this platform for free and they don't interfere with it. That just doesn't make any sense. That don't make no sense. That don't make no sense. But this Epstein thing, I mean, could it be any more guilty than when Trump interrupted Pam Bondi to be like, are we still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? Why are we talking about that? It's not even important. And it's interesting, too, because if you look at all of the late night talk show hosts, they all say the same thing. Did you guys see that Steve Carell is getting fucking canceled? They say it's because of financial reasons, but it just also happens to come the day after, or 2 days after, he points out that Paramount was settling with Trump for $30 million, as much as $30 million. Trump is going to get as much as $30 million from Paramount because he made some claims that they edited an interview with Kamala to make it look like she didn't screw up her words like she did. Like she rambled a little bit more, I guess they say, than was shown. And Trump said that was a breach of the election fucking bullshit, whatever. And was and so Paramount was going to just settle for what will work out to be as much as $30 million. Donald Trump is going to make as much as $30 million just from Paramount. It's so, and Paramount has said that it's a frivolous fucking dumb lawsuit that they could easily defeat. And yet, instead of doing that and not paying him $30 million, as much as $30 million. They're just going to, I guess. What the fuck is happening? What the fuck is happening? I mean, there's just so much of that kind of shit that you just, and Paramount is of course controlled by AIPAC members, by dual Israeli citizens. They're just paying their boy. But this Epstein thing is so, like, it's so embarrassing. And you know what it is? It's this fantastic distraction. Because the genocide of the Palestinians is continuing. And even though, like, you feel like when you're talking about Epstein, you're indirectly talking about the genocide because it's all the same group. Whether it's the providers of Epstein or the committers of the genocide, it's the same group. That's my justification, at least. That's why I'm comfortable talking about it. Because otherwise, I just don't think there's anything else that should be being talked about. Look what they're fucking doing right now. They're literally killing children. They're either starving them or dropping bombs on them or shooting them or a bit of all three. Like if you look up videos of pulling children from the rubble of buildings, you're going to be there's going to be a hell of a lot more videos of that. That's absolutely provable and like you can see what you're seeing. Then you'll find anything close to videos proving October 7th is what they said it was. I continue to say that no Israelis were killed or taken hostage on October 7th. And when you're talking about one of the most heavily surveilled areas in the world, not having footage to back up this claim, that really does say something. I've looked it up. I've looked it up live on here where I could have been, where I've played the video. I've never seen the video before, but I played the video live. And it could have easily shown proof. And I would have looked like an idiot. And instead it's showing you people supposedly fleeing from the concert and fleeing from gunfire, mind you. And it shows them getting out of their cars and running away. Who's going to get out of a car and run away from a gunfire situation? It's asinine. You're going to get out of the fast-moving armor that's around you and just run across an open field where there's no trees or anything to get in the way. You're just the only target. What sense does that make? And of course, there's videos of the supposed, people escaping, and they're showing themselves like up close, laying down, hiding behind some bushes, apparently. Or running across the field, but all you see is the ground because they can't hold their camera correctly. Or you see the video of supposedly 3 Hamas soldiers standing outside of a large tanker where apparently the Israelis all pack themselves into. When things get scary, there's these random tankers, container, the containers that go on the back of trains and shit. Containers people build houses out of. There's random container that's all over, and these 3 soldiers are standing outside the random container, and instead of shooting the people inside, shooting the fish in the barrel, They supposedly throw a grenade in there and run off. And then there's no footage of like the grenade exploding or anything. It just shows them throw the grenade and run. And that's supposed to be sufficient proof? Because there was no proof of the supposed paragliders that Israel said that they used. Hamas puts out a video showing them training on paragliders just in case people didn't believe it. Just in case people weren't believing Israel's narrative, Hamas puts out a video to prove it. What sense does that make? Where do they put out the video? Why would they do it? There's two supposed videos of hostages. One is a lady with poop all over her pants, supposedly getting put into like this brand new black tinted out windowed SUV. And then there's another one where they're driving through a city, a town or whatever, and the hostage is on the back of the Jeep and they're going, ah, and they're driving by. That's your proof that some 200 people were taken hostage. And oh, and Candace Owens just puts out a video. You know, she's supposedly against Israel, right? But she's not questioning whether the narrative even happened or not. She's saying, she's putting out the question of whether Israel knew about the attack or not. She always says, Israel. But she says that prior to the attack, the Egyptians knew, and they put out a memo saying that Hamas was planning on taking 200 hostages. Really? Really? They knew they were going to be able to take 200 hostages? If they can draw up and then facilitate a plan that precisely, how are they losing? Why haven't they literally done anything since? Israel tells you that Hamas launched 5,000 rockets in the first 20 minutes of the attack. It happened so fast, they weren't able to get footage of it somehow, for some reason. The most heavily surveilled area. 5,000 rockets in 20 minutes. That's 4 rockets per second. How much do you think 5,000 rockets costs? How much do you think the amount of rocket launchers it would take to launch 4 rockets per second cost? There was a complete embargo, a complete blockade around Gaza, the Gaza Strip for forever, leading up to October 23rd, or leading up to, October 7th, 2023. And truthishly, they had enhanced it. They had in the months leading up, they were sending Israeli soldiers in to pull Israelis out. And they weren't letting the Gazans leave. They were holding them in, and they wouldn't let Israelis go into Gaza. And this was happening weeks, months beforehand. But they also wouldn't let lumber be brought into Gaza, stating that the lumber could be used to manufacture weapons that could be used against Israelis, so they couldn't rebuild their houses. They just had nothing. But somehow they were able to sneak in 5,000, they were able to pay for and sneak in 5,000 rockets and however many rocket launchers it would take. What the fuck are you talking about? The only proof that you've been given that this attack even happened is from the IDF. And the idea that around 1,200, well, around 1,100, around 1,200 people in Israel died. They never say, I mean, maybe they do now. Maybe they've caught on now and they're claiming Israeli. But especially in the beginning, when I used to look at this all the time, and you still hear it when people talk about it, but they always say around 1,100, around 1,200 people died in Israel. Not Israelis died on October 7th. People died in Israel. And they also claimed that almost immediately they killed 1,500 Hamas inside the Israeli borders. So when they say around 1,100 people died in Israel, I guess they're not really lying, right? See, what none of you did and what I did is on November 7th, 2023, I went to the Israel-Hamas war Wikipedia page. Because I just had that feeling. You know how the Handy Sook thing, there were donation pages and whatnot made in the hours, days leading up to it for the event that hadn't happened. And I had actually experienced this one other time when I looked up the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I was just trying to see one day if what Russia and Israel's connection was. And it got me to the Russia, it was called the unprovoked invasion. They called it the unprovoked invasion. And it just happened to happen a few days after the Andrew trial wrapped up nicely. And people started asking again about the tape, so they needed a distraction. It didn't work out the way they wanted it to. But the Epstein tapes, who cares about the list? I want to know about the tapes. All the fucking tapes that were found that had the famous people, victim, the age, the DVDs and tapes and shit that were found inside the safe. Good morning, Matt. I'm not distracted by some manufactured list. I want to know what the fucking, what the tapes show that they admitted to having. But, what the fuck was I saying? You distracted me, Matt. You know, this whole thing is just fucking silly. Like, it's silly that it's working out the way it did. Oh, I was talking about Israel. So the Russia thing happened right after the Andrew trial wrapped up, where Virginia Giuffre just suddenly said, okay, I'll take the money and disappear. And then the day after that, the mask restrictions were lifted all across the United States. And then a couple of weeks, like a couple of days or a week later, the unprovoked invasion happened. And I looked up, because back then, it was easy to go see the edit history on a Wikipedia page. You could just click on edit history and then click back a bunch of times and get to the first edit if that's what you wanted to do. And that was the first time I personally saw that the page that was made for the supposed event happened the day before the event took place. So I just had a hunch about the October 7th bullshit. And I decided to look it up. And again, back then, you could look the shit up. You could just go to the page, click back a bunch of times, and get to the first edit. The supposed attack took place at 6:30 a.m. October 7th, 2023, local time. 6:30 in the morning. That was when it happened. The first edit made to the page was made at 6:22 a.m. 2023 local time. So somehow this totally unknown, unprecedented invasion was being documented 8 minutes before it actually took place. And even if you switched it around, even if you said that you know, the page was made 8 minutes after the initial event, who's going to do that? There's a big fucking to-do happening, a supposed, you know, military strike, whatever you want to call it, an attack. There's a supposed attack taking place, and somebody's running to a computer to be like, oh, here's everything that's going to happen in the next couple days. Because I ended up reading the edits for the next three and a half hours, you know, up through like 9 o'clock. And you saw that there were like 5 profiles that each seemingly had a specific assignment. One was to come lay down the narrative. One was to check for the spelling. One was to clean it up or add to it. One was to move things around. You know, it was really weird to look at. And when I tried to edit it, it said that you had to have like 80 previous confirmed edits on Wikipedia. You then had to be approved by one group, that if you got approved by it, they would send you to another group. And if that group approved your ability to edit, you would be allowed to edit. But you think like this is as obvious as it gets. The page was made 8 minutes before the supposed attack took place. Wouldn't at the very least an investigation into who those IP addresses belong to, who was laying down the narrative before it happened, shouldn't that be an easy thing to sort of figure out? But that's the whole thing. Like, it's all connected. It all has to do with Epstein shit. Epstein and you know, Epstein and Israel are the same. Epstein was the Maxwell character 2.0. And if you look at their timelines, they're almost parallel. You know, the Maxwell profile, the Maxwell character ends where the Epstein character begins. And the Maxwell character, it's the same thing. You know, he was this publishing mogul. He was, you know, supposedly all of his family's killed in the concentration camp. He's actually from what is now Ukraine. Yugoslavia, but now Ukraine. He, you know, he was thought to be a KGB guy, an MI6 guy, and a Mossad guy. But this is a British media mogul who technically never really lived in Israel, never was an Israeli citizen. When he died as this disgraced media mogul who was said to have defrauded so many people and blackmailed, and he sold a bugged computer program called The Promise, Promis. He sold this bugged software to a bunch of US government installations, nuclear installations, and all this other shit that allowed Israel access into those programs. He sold the tainted software that gave Israel access to all of the secrets. Like, when you think about like how insane the whole thing is, and then you understand that he's this disgraced media mogul, blah blah blah. He ends up in a suspiciously weird dead situation, supposedly. And he's given the highest ranking military funeral that Israel can give somebody. He's buried at the Mount of Olives Cemetery in Jerusalem. The prime minister at the time gave his eulogy and said that that they could not say everything that man had done for Israel. They couldn't say that today. They couldn't basically say out loud all the things that man had done for Israel. But he was giving the highest ranking Israeli military funeral. Why isn't that crazy? Why isn't that something that interests you? Especially when you understand like how it's all connected. When you look into Epstein and how Epstein character, picks back up where that one left off. And you look into Epstein and Bill Barr, the guy who, the William Barr, the Attorney General William Barr, who had the final say on whether Epstein's death was warranted a full-on government investigation, and denied it. His dad is who gave Epstein his job at the Dalton Academy. And it's crazy because this is actually starting to finally be said. I've been saying it now for years, wondering why nobody else was saying it. But it's finally starting to catch on, but you still don't hear anybody talking about how insanely coincidental it is that he gave Epstein the job as one of his last things. His tenure at the Dalton Academy came to an end, and one of his last orders of business was to hire Epstein, who didn't have the credentials necessary to even have that job. And then went on to write the book, not Epstein, Donald Barr, William Barr's father, wrote a book about an oligarchical government, space government, that made sex slaves out of children. Like, it's like they want us to know it. There's no, you telling me the guy that happened to have given Epstein his job, and then his son happens to be the one that decides not to do the investigation into Epstein's crazy death. He happened to, after giving Epstein the job, write a book about a society that controls the world, controls the society, that rapes the society and rapes children and shit. Like, it's crazy. And the fact this guy is talking crap about truth says it all. Exactly. I mean, it's you know, who the fuck is going to hear what I'm saying and be like, oh, I don't care? Is it somebody that's been on YouTube for 9 years? Calvin Coolidge, the president, has no subscribers, been here for 9 years? That's the guy that seemingly has an issue with the facts that I'm talking about? I can't even do it justice. Right? Donald Barr. Donald Barr was an American educator, writer, and strategic services officer, SS officer. The OSS was the first intelligence agency of the United States. Get the fuck out of here. Formed in World War II, the OSS was formed as an agency of the Joint Chiefs of Staff to coordinate espionage activities behind enemy lines for all branches of the United States Armed Forces. Other OSS functions include the use of propaganda, subversion, and post-war planning. Are you kidding me right here? What's the likelihood that it works out this way? That every single piece of this puzzle points to the exact same conclusion. And it's the crazy conspiracy theory that someone like me has to say. It's not like it's some, he ends up being like the water planning guy or like the guy who even that would be a little suspicious, but it's not like he's just some garbage man or something. Nope. He's specifically connected to the first intelligence agency in the United States, the precursor to the CIA, I guess. The OSS was dissolved a month after the end of the war. Intelligence tasks were soon resumed and carried over by its successors. The Strategic Services Unit, SSU, the Department of State's Bureau of Intelligence and Research, INR, and the Central Intelligence Group, CIG, the intermediary precursor to the independent CIA. On December 14th, 2016, the origins. Let's go to origins. The organization was collectively honored with a Congressional Gold Medal. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Before OSS, the various departments of the executive branch, including the State Treasury, Navy, and War Departments, conducted American intelligence activities on the ad hoc basis with no overall direction, coordination, or control. The U.S. Army and U.S. Navy had separate code-breaking departments. What sense would that even make? It's just stupid. The U.S. Army and U.S. Navy had separate code. Signal Intelligence Services and OP-20-G, a previous code-breaking operation of the State Department, the MI-8, ran by Herbert Yardley, had been shut down in 1929 by Secretary of State Henry Stimson, deeming it an inappropriate function of the diplomatic arm because, quote, gentlemen don't read each other's mail. That makes so much sense. It's kind of weird, though. The British intelligence service is called the MI6, and we had one called the MI8 because we're completely separate. The FBI was responsible for domestic security and anti-espionage operations. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who else? Delano. All you guys, a lot of Delanos? Not Delano. That's a black name. Franklin Delano, Delano. Lots of those running around. Franklin was concerned about American intelligence deficiencies on the suggestion of William Stevenson, the senior British intelligence officer in the Western Hemisphere. What? In the Western Hemisphere? Almost like he has a lot more control than you would think, huh? Roosevelt requested that William J. Donovan draft a plan for an intelligence service based on the British Secret Intelligence Service MI6 and Special Forces Operations Executive and Special Forces Special Operations Executive, SOE. Donovan envisioned a single agency responsible for foreign intelligence and special operations involving commandos, disinformation, partisan, and guerrilla activities. Donovan worked closely with Australian-born British intelligence officer Charles Howard Dick Ellis, who has been credited with writing the blueprint. Said Ellis, I was soon requested to draft a blueprint for an American intelligence agency, the equivalent of the BSC, the British Security Coordination, and based on these British wartime improvisations. Detailed tables of organization were disclosed to Washington. Among these were organizational tables that led to the birth of General William Donovan's OSS. Oh, Jesus. After submitting his work, Memorandum of Establishment of Service of Strategic Information. Yeah, when I see that memorandum word, my ears perk up a bit. On July 11th, 1941, heading a new organization known as the Office of the Coordinator of Information, the COI. Ellis, described as Donovan's right-hand man, effectively ran the organization. Wait, Ellis is which one again? With Australian-born British intelligence officer. So a British intelligence officer ran this thing. Writes Fink, Ellis was sent from New York by William Stevenson to, quote, to Washington to open a substation to facilitate daily liaison with Donovan, who reciprocated by sending future Director of Central Intelligence, DCI, Alan Welsh Dulles, to liaise with BSC in the Rockefeller Center. I mean, come on. You have to ask yourself, who is going to be here trying to defame or distract or deter or anything right now? Who's not just sitting here kind of shocked by what I'm reading and interested in what's being said instead of trying to get, to get people to turn on me, right? Think about how insane this is. According to Thomas F. Troy, paraphrasing Stevenson, Ellis was the tradecraft expert, the organization man, the one who furnished Bill Donovan with charts and memoranda on running an intelligence organization. I mean, that's all I care to read. There's a lot more, but it's just going to be more of that. It's just proof. It's just like, what else? What would you require if it came down to I could appease your curiosity? What would I have to present you with for you to be like, holy shit, that's kind of weird? Let me read you what Donald Barr, we're still, so he was Donald Barr, that's William Barr's father, was an American educator, writer, and Office of Strategic Services officer. He was a CIA man before there was a CIA. And his son, William Barr, was also a CIA man and was in the CIA from 71 to 78 or something like that. At the exact time Epstein was given his position at the Dalton School by his dad. He was administrator at Columbia University before serving as headmaster at the Dalton School in New York City and the Hackley School in Tarrytown, New York. Tarrytown, New York has its own fucking checkered history, doesn't it? It always makes sense. I'm sorry if you bots can't understand English. It's probably not your first language. Exactly. That's you're catching on. Claiming that I'm literally reading to you guys incoherent nonsense or whatever talking point they use. Because remember, they've been given these talking points to go off of. That's why they all say the same dumb shit. Right? Like it's this idea that what I'm saying is somehow incoherent. Well, then that's not my fault. I'm reading you what it says. I'm reading you what you're supposed to know. If I'm incoherent, then that must mean you probably don't speak English as your first language. I would assume it's the newest language on the planet, which is Hebrew. Hebrew being invented in the late 1800s, early 1900s. They say it was revived, but invented seems to fit a lot better. Because they basically took Arabic, put a mirror up to it, and said that was Hebrew. They used Arabic to account for the deficiencies in the language that they had. How if Hebrew is not only this ancient language, but there's supposedly all these Hebrew texts that have been discovered, how is it that Hebrew disappeared? Why would they have needed to use Arabic to account for the deficiencies if there's all these Hebrew texts that supposedly exist? That's the piece. It had been right under my nose this whole time, and I hadn't fucking realized it. But yeah, that's the piece of that doesn't make any sense. If Hebrew truly is this ancient language of the great people of the blah, 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 how did it even disappear? And then when it was supposedly revived, why did they have to use Arabic? Why didn't they have enough Hebrew text to be able to put the language together? If that doesn't fucking ring your bell, I don't know what will, man. Hebrew, Greek, over 1,500 years, 40 others. So Hebrew existed. Okay, so if it existed, why did it have to be revived? And why did they have to use Arabic to account for the deficiencies? I know you're not going to go with this, right? So let's do what we always do, which is prove what we have to say. So this man, Eliezer ben Yehuda, he was born Eliezer Yitzhak Perlman, but for some reason decided to change his name to sound more, Semitic, like they always do. Born January 7th, 1958, died December 16th, 1922. Now, understand that I am providing you with, undeniable proof as to what I'm saying. If you can provide me something else, then we can go with that. But he was a Russian Jewish linguist, lexicographer, and journalist who immigrated to Jerusalem in 1881 when the Ottoman Empire still ruled it. He is renowned as the lexicographer, I don't know how to say it, of the first Hebrew dictionary. You're telling me that over all these years, with all these Hebrew texts that have existed, there wasn't a dictionary? Why wasn't there ever a dictionary found? And also as the editor of the Jerusalem-based Havzi, one of the first Hebrew newspapers published in the land of Israel, which is a different thing than Israel. Because, Israel didn't exist back then. So how you could have the land of Israel is kind of strange. But Ben Yehuda was the primary driving force behind the revival of the Hebrew language. To accomplish the task, Ben Yehuda insisted with the Committee of Hebrew Language, that, to quote the committee records, in order to supplement the deficiencies of the Hebrew language, the committee coins words according to the rules of grammar and linguistic analogy from Semitic roots, Aramaic, and especially from Arabic roots. In 1903, Ben Yehuda, along with many members of the Second Aliyah, supported Theodore Herzl's Uganda Scheme proposal, which is about making Uganda the Israel until they could take over Palestine. But they figured it would be too much work, so they didn't want to do, because it meant too much self-reliance, too much of them having to do farming and shit like that. So they decided against it. Ben Yehuda raised his son, Ben Zion, meaning son of Zion, entirely in Hebrew. He did not allow his son to be exposed to other languages, and during childhood, even berated his wife, because he was such a good guy, for singing a Russian lullaby. His son thus became the first native speaker of Hebrew in modern times. Ben Yehuda later raised his daughter Dola entirely in Hebrew as well. So, there is no denying it. If Hebrew is supposedly ancient language, and there are countless texts, then why was it even lost in the first place? And why would they need to use Aramaic and Arabic specifically to account for, to supplement the deficiencies? The first dictionary was written in 1900 something. As always, notice how there are people on here that are continuing to comment just dumb nonsense. They can't actually debunk what I'm saying, so this is what they do. You can't just make stuff up. That's what they do. That's what they do. There is no real arguing with what I'm saying. They can't. Instead of addressing what I'm saying, like prior to me saying Hebrew was prior to me reading this, when I'm saying Hebrew is the youngest language in the world, it was invented in the late 1800s, then they have something to say. Then they claim how I'm lying and on other dumb shit, right? But as soon as I prove it, and I show that without a doubt, it's the youngest language in the world, and it was invented in, the late 18s, early 19s, then suddenly we start going with dumb nonsense. Oh, I'm this, I'm that, blah, 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 this, that, and the other thing. So, William Barr, he also wrote 2 science fiction novels. His sons are United States Attorney General William Barr and physicist Stephen Barr. This is funny too. Barr was born in Manhattan, New York, the son of Estelle, a psychologist, and Pelham, Pelham, Pelham Barr, an economist. He and his wife Margaret he and his wife, Mary Margaret, had 4 children, including William P. Barr. Don't give a shit. Not going to list off the children. Donald Barr was born to a Jewish family, but later converted to Catholicism. You ever met somebody in your life that was born into a Jewish family and converted to Catholicism? Ever? Ever even a little bit? He spent his salary, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it's like you couldn't, I hate the phrase you couldn't make this stuff up because somebody obviously did. But me personally, like if I was going to write the conspiracy theory out and I was just making it up, I wouldn't do it this way because it would just be too obvious. People would say, oh, come on. It's not believable that it's this obvious and that the stupid people that are being, manipulated, that being the slaves, the Goyim slaves, that they don't know any better. It can't be this obvious and they're just, they're oblivious to it. How is anybody oblivious to it if it's this obvious? You would think like you wouldn't be able to make a story so obvious and it be a good, considered a good book. So Barr served in the Office of Strategic Services during World War II, so he was there at the beginning. Following the conflict, he returned to Colombia where he, and there's just no information about that. There's no, explanation about what he did. Hello, good morning. What his positions were, all that stuff. Like we just go, yeah, he was in the first version of the CIA, but that part's not important. He was headmaster of the Dalton School from 1964 to 1974. For a brief time at the end of his tenure as headmaster, disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein was employed as a math teacher. It is unclear whether Barr hired Epstein. William Barr was 3 years older. His brother Stephen Barr, the physicist, was the same age as Epstein. So more than likely they went to the same schools. You know what? Let's see something. Stephen Barr. Stephen Barr, physicist, blah, 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 blah. I don't care. Personal life, career. I don't care about his career. Personal life. He's married. They have 5 children. Barr's younger brother, William Barr, and son of Donald Barr, the educator who served as the headmaster of the Dalton School and the Hackney School. He graduated from Columbia. Okay, so I can't find where he went to school. Huh. That's really interesting. Oh, okay, no, here it is. Barr received a PhD in... Nope, but see, again, I can't find his high school. That's what I want to find out, where he went to high school. But he got his PhD from Princeton in 78. Princeton awarded him blah, blah, blah. The University of Pennsylvania for a postdoctoral fellowship from 78 to 80. The University of Washington as a research assistant professor, 80 to 85. Brookhaven National Laboratories, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, there is, but I can't find his high school, where I would be willing to bet he probably went to the same high school as Epstein. He just happens to be the same age, and it's all just silly. William Barr, who's 3 years ahead of him, gets into the CIA 3 years before Epstein is given this job, where Epstein just kind of comes out of nowhere. All right. So I didn't mean to read this much of William Barr's shit, but it is interesting. So it says, for a brief time, unclear whether Barr hired Epstein. In 1973, so this was actually the year before, my bad. In 1973, he published Space Relations, a scientific novel about a planet ruled by oligarchs who engaged in child sex slavery. He actually wrote 2 books, but for some reason, Space Relations is the only one that has a page dedicated to it, like that has any information. Space Relations is a space opera novel by Donald Barr, the father of former U.S. Attorney William Barr and former employer of Jeffrey Epstein, originally published on September 17th, 1973. September, October, November, December. So 10 months before he gave Epstein his job. Originally published by Charterhouse and distributed by McKay. I wonder who Charterhouse is. It's not blue, so I can't click on it. I can't click on who McKay is. Who are these publishing? Who is Charterhouse and McKay? Like, Charterhouse seems like a common name. You would think that, like, that seems like a prominent name. Charterhouse Publishing. Let's see. Nope. There's no Wikipedia page for a Charterhouse Publishing. So don't know who the actual publisher of this book was. It was reprinted by Fawcett Crest Books. Who's Fawcett Crest Books? Let's see. Fawcett Publications. So Fawcett Publications was an American publishing company founded in 1919, but that's not. There is no Fawcett Crest. It just keeps taking me to Fawcett Publications. So let's see. Fawcett Publications was an American publishing company in 1919 in Robbinsdale, Minnesota by Wilford Hamilton. By Wilford Hamilton, Captain Billy Fawcett. It kicked off with the publication of the Bawdy Humor magazine, Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, and expanded into a magazine empire with the first issue of Mechanics Illustrated in the 1920s, followed by numerous titles including True Confessions, Family Circle, Women's Day, and True. Fawcett Comics, which began operating in 1939, led to the introduction of Captain Marvel. The company became a publisher of paperbacks in 1950 with the opening of Gold Medal Books. In 1953, the company abandoned its roster of superhero comic characters in the wake of the declining sales and a lawsuit for infringement by the Captain Marvel character on the copyright of Action Comics character Superman, and ended its publication of comic books. It was purchased by CBS Publications in 1977 and subsequently was dismantled and absorbed by other companies. The Fawcett family. Captain Billy and Claire Fawcett had 4 sons and a daughter. Roscoe Fawcett. I don't care. That's it. It's just going to tell me a little bit about each child, I guess. In 70, Fawcett acquired Popular Library and Perfect Film and Chemical Corporation. Fawcett Publications was bought by CBS Publications in 1977 for $50 million. But again, I don't see how this is. It's not Fawcett Crest Publications, so I don't know what that means. For Fawcett Crest Books, I don't know what that is. And that was the reprint in 75. So it's only one of 2 novels Barr is known to have written, the other being A Planet in Arms, which it's blue and you go to look at it and it doesn't there's nothing there. So the plot of this book, right? Oh, here we go. Schizophrenia. We have the plot points being used. say the same dumb things over and over again. It doesn't make you all look like the same fucking group or anything. Okay, so in the future, humans have formed an intergalactic empire ruled by aristocrats. During a time of war with the Plith, Plith, an empire of ant-like alien bug people, Ambassador John Craig, a formerly liberal Earthman in his 30s, is dispatched to the strategically important planet Kosar, a human colony that was settled by the Carlisle Society as a place for exile for political extremists, and now is ruled by an oligarchical high council of 7 nobles, each of whom is in charge of a different domain with its own traditions. The 7 families that control the world, huh? Their boredom and absolute power have driven them to madness, to the point that Kassar's entry into the empire has been stymied by the Man-Inhabited Planets Treaty clause written by Craig against alliances with slave-owning societies due to its practice of kidnapping humans to become legal playthings of the galaxy's super rich. Craig is now a campaigner to bring Kossar into the Empire, which previously had been to the planet when the passenger ship on which he was traveling on a return trip from the Beetlejuice conference was captured by space pirates. While en route to Kassar, one of the pirates, I don't know if that's a spelling mistake or what, one of the pirates awakened Craig and the other prisoners to rape a 15-year-old virginal redhead female captive in front of them. The rapist's fellow pirates later hear of this and dock his pay as punishment for spoiling her market value. Craig then spent 2 years as a slave of the beautiful, sensual, and sadistic Lady Morgan Sidney, the only female member of the oligarchy with whom he became romantically involved. Together they lived in her castle, ruling over and engaging in sexual relations with those under their domain, including an enslaved teenager at a clinic used to breed enslaved people. When Craig stumbles on hints of an alien invasion, he realizes he must escape to save humanity. Craig is depicted as undisturbed by Lady Morgan's sadism. When he is ordered to sexually assault an enslaved teenager, he enjoys his participation in the act. And that's it. That's all we get to know. They're not going to tell you whether he succeeds. That's the part that you're supposed to know. So it reminded me of something that doesn't seem to be talked about. Like, you kind of hear it hinted at every once in a while, but it's not talked about enough. So the guy that that gave Epstein his first job, whose son decided that Epstein's case wasn't worth an investigation, wrote a book about the rich and powerful raping teenagers and keeping us as slaves. 10 months, his book was published 10 months before giving Epstein his job. Do you understand how unlikely that is? Do you not get how just... What are the chances of that? Like, I can't keep fucking. I want to. Do you realize how insane that is? I don't think you do. Did they shut off the comments? I feel like they shut off the comments. Yeah, it seems like they shut them off. Did they shut them off? But that reminded me of something that I wanna read, but not if the comments are off. If the comments are off, then I gotta reset. I don't want to reset. I got 23 people going on right now. I haven't been allowed to have these kind of sustained numbers for a few videos now. But I also want to hear what you guys have to say. So I've talked about this thing before. And I want to talk about it again with everything that's going on right now. But I've given the chance now. Like I've said, is the comment section shut off? And nobody's responded to show me that I'm wrong, that it's still working. Or if you have, I can't see it. But come on, this sucks. You know what? That sucks. I don't want to reset. God damn it. Maybe I should just not reset and just read on, because I'm not distracted, so I can. It's funny how it got shut off with the last comment being schizophrenia. And that's the last comment. I don't know what it looks like from your guys' perspective. I don't know if you can still see the comments when I can't. But I know from my perspective, that's the last comment that I can see. All right. So I'm going to talk about something called the Leahy Law. Leahy law. The Leahy laws, or Leahy amendments, are U.S. human rights laws that prohibit the United States Department of State and the Department of Defense from providing military assistance to foreign security units, or to foreign security force units that violate human rights with impunity. It is named after its principal sponsor, Senator Patrick Leahy. To implement this law, the U.S. embassies, the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labor, and the appropriate regional bureau of the United States Department of State vet potential recipients of security assistance. If a unit is found to have been credibly implicated in a serious abuse of human rights, assistance is denied until the host nation government takes effective steps to bring the responsible persons within the unit to justice. While the U.S. government does not publicly report on foreign armed forces units it has cut off from receiving assistance, press reports have indicated that security force and national defense force units in Austria, Bangladesh, Bolivia, Colombia, Guatemala, Mexico, Nigeria, Turkey, Indonesia, Lebanon, and St. Lucia have been denied assistance due to the Leahy Law. On the other hand, Israel has never been denied assistance under this law. Funny how it says that. So it's literally a law that's on the books that says if a nation is engaged in human rights abuses, their funding should be cut off. And it's not even a question of whether Israel is violating human rights at this point. They're killing civilians like it's a sport. Like they get points for it and shit. Which they do. They have disgusting point systems set up, and they get rewarded for killing more. It's really, really awful. But under the Leahy Law, they should absolutely be denied any sort of service or any sort of money, the $3.8 billion a year we give them. At the very least. I mean, there's a lot more to it than just that $3.8 billion every year. Lump sum payment that's given in the first month of the fiscal year, whatever that may be for them, I guess. I don't know if it's January, but they get the lump sum $3.8 billion cash to do what they want with. They're supposed, they were supposed to use it to buy weapons from us to make it look like we weren't just giving them weapons all the time. But now that's not part of it anymore. Trump eliminated that, supposedly. Origins and background. Senator Leahy first introduced the law in 1997 as part of the Foreign Operations Appropriations Act. It initially referred only to counter-narcotics assistance for 1 year. The next year, with his leadership, Congress expanded it to cover all State Department-funded assistance. This provision was included in the annual Foreign Operations Budget Law until 2008. At that time, Congress made the law permanent by amending it into the Foreign Assistance Act. In 2011, Congress revised the law substantially, seeking to enhance its implementation. The United States government has long been a major, if not the largest provider of assistance, including funding, training, and non-lethal equipment and weaponry to foreign military and other security forces. In 2012, it spent $25 billion on training and equipping foreign militaries and law enforcement agencies of more than 100 countries around the world. Security assistance is driven by overriding U.S. national security objectives, including a desire to change, overturn communist regimes during the 1990s, or counter anti-Western terrorism in the 2000s. Throughout the United States, long history of providing assistance to foreign armed forces. Some portion of this assistance has been provided to forces that repress and abuse their own populations. According to the sun is getting in my eyes. According to Senator Leahy, his law, quote, makes it clear that when credible evidence of human rights violations exist, U.S. aid must stop. But it provides the necessary flexibility to allow the U.S. to advance its foreign policy objectives in these countries. It's got its own section here, the Leahy Law and Israel. While the Leahy Law should apply uniformly to all countries, experts say U.S. has created a set of procedures, though what is known as the Israel-Leahy Review Forum, the ILVF, that favor Israel. A number of observers have complained that the Leahy Act has not been enacted in response to what they have claimed are human rights abuses by Israeli military. I mean, just this idea of it being like a claim that they have claimed has happened. It's fucking obvious that it's happening. There's no doubt about it. All right, so the video, the feed has failed. We're going to reset one last time. Pedophiles, kill yourself.